Good morning, dear friends. I feel so happy to see all of you, and I feel so nourished by our Sangha practicing together already this morning. We can begin right now by just coming back to our bodies, settling into sitting position, and listening to the sound of the bell together. I'd like to begin this morning by reading a poem of Thai Thich Nhat Hanh, and inviting his presence to be with us. We are his children, and we are his family, and we are his brothers and sisters, and we are his body. The poem is called True Source. Where do I find the Himalayan range? In me, there is a strong and graceful mountain peak, stretching up, lost in mist and clouds. Let us together go together to climb that nameless mountain. Let us sit on the ageless blue-green stone, quietly watching time weave the silken thread that creates the dimension called space. Where does the Amazon River flow? In me, a winding river makes its way. I don't know from the depths of which mountain it pours out. Night and day, its silvery water winds toward no fixed destination. Let us go together, putting a boat on its fiercely flowing stream to find our way together to the common goal of all beings in the cosmos. Which galaxy shall I call Andromeda? In me there is a river of stars. moving silently with millions of brilliant stars. Let us fly up together, tearing the net of space, opening a way on the path of the clouds. The sound of your flapping wings will reach even the most distant planet. Which species shall I call Homo sapiens? In me there is a little boy. His left hand lifts up the curtain of the night. His right hand holds a sunflower, his torch. The child's two eyes are stars. The child's hair flies curling in the wind, like clouds over the ancient jungle on a stormy afternoon. Let us approach the child together and ask, what are you looking for? Where are you going? Where is the true source? Where is the final destination? And what are the ways home? The little boy just smiles. The flower in his hand suddenly becomes a brilliant red sun, and the child goes on alone, his path through the stars. Our true nature, our Buddha nature, that which knows it inter-is with the whole cosmos. Our awakened mind is something we can touch regularly in our daily life. Tai has taken the teachings of the Buddha and given us so many clear practices for how to do that, made them so simple and so accessible for us. And it begins with just quieting, clarifying our inner space. When we're teaching mindfulness to children, we often use what we call a mind jar. I forgot to bring mine. I wanted to bring it. It's a jar. It has liquid in it, clear liquid, and we put a bunch of sparkles in it, glitter, and we shake it up, and we, tell the children, this is like your mind usually is, or often is. It's just totally filled with stuff, swirling, moving. You can't see anything quite clearly. It's all jumbled and cluttered. Yeah, and then we put the jar down and we wait and we watch how the little pieces settle, become quiet, and finally there's some space in there. You can actually see and know what's happening in yourself and in the world. I think if we looked at our mind jar right now, there'd be lots of news headlines floating around. Maybe a Trump head. I was thinking, what would adults put in? We have a lot going on inside. And this clutter, this movement, at its root, there's a lot of grasping onto things. So the quieting down is also the letting go and finding space. So we can see what we really feel like. We're not chasing after all these little bits of glitter and news projects. So I find, if any of you have heard me teach before, I think I do the same thing often. Because when I really think about practicing together, I always come back to the most important things. And on a day of mindfulness, for me, I always want to bring the practice into my body, so that it's not just a theoretical idea of the practice, but I actually, during the day, I have the time to be deeply present with myself, to allow the healing to happen, to know that quiet space inside. So the Buddha offered the 4 establishments of mindfulness, and Thai uses these so much. And you can expand them into like a long meditation, but you can also bring them back to just the moment when we hear the bell. We're doing the 4 establishments of mindfulness. So Thai has given us ways to become really present and to know ourselves deeply and to find that space inside. So this morning I'm gonna go through some of those establishments in practice so that we can use them to come home. For me, my experience is that as a practitioner, if I do these practices, these basic practices enough, they become part of who I am. An automatic response, kind of like if the squirrel jumps out on the road, your foot goes on the brake. You know what to do in that moment. And for me, it's when life throws something challenging at me and I start to feel overwhelmed and suffering, I go right to my practice. Just like going right to the brake. I know what I need to do because I've trained in coming back to myself. And this is super helpful because when life becomes difficult, if we don't practice, it gets more and more and more difficult. The story starts to play over and over in our mind, and we start to act out of those difficult emotions, the fear, the anger. So for me, things that have happened recently are things like learning that a lot of my income is disappeared. Because my income has to do with being together with people. That's a big thing in my life that creates uncertainty. I go back to my practice. Instead of going into that story of what's going to happen. And I do need to figure those things out, but I don't need to stir up and fall into deep anxiety about it. That isn't helpful for me. I don't need to lose myself completely. When I realize I've hurt my family or my friends that I care so deeply about, that moment when I recognize that I've been unskillful, I come back to that practice, to my breath, to my body. When my children come to me when I'm feeling absolutely exhausted and I just feel like crying myself because there's so much going on in that moment and they need me. I just drop in. I drop into my practice, to my body, to my breath, to holding what's coming up inside of me and stopping the story before it starts to take me down into, sometimes we call it the hell realms, place where there's very deep suffering. I catch myself before I go down the story, and I just listen and I just care for my body, my feelings. I let my breath and my awareness hold me until I have that space and I can see more clearly again, I am more than this particular moment and this challenging information or experience. I'm so much more. Like Thai's poem, I am stars, I am mountains, I am my Sangha. My Sangha's there loving me and holding me. So I'm going to do a guided meditation practice for us so we can feel this coming back to ourselves. I'm going to be doing the body and the feelings together. This practice, the Buddha discovered it so long ago, but we're now discovering it over and over again in many different traditions and practices. How helpful it is to come back and listen to our body and our feelings and hold them with a part of ourselves that knows how to hold our awareness and our space and our true love. So we'll take this time to take care of our body and our feelings together. So bringing our awareness inside for our meditation. Allowing our thoughts to settle, letting go. Of everything else, except for listening and being present with ourselves. Such a wonderful gift to come back and be present with ourselves. Becoming aware of our body and our feelings. And just noticing what's there. Noticing any tension, anxiety, fear, whatever it is. Listening to ourselves, listening to what we find inside. It may be like a little child that's so longing for our own presence, that feels like crying. Whatever's there, it's okay just how it is. I see you. I know you. I'm here for you right now. I want to know you, to take good care of you. And wrapping the feelings we find with our loving kindness, with our mindfulness, our clear awareness that has so much space, that isn't judging, that knows how to just witness what's there. Aware of my feeling, accepting, listening to, and loving my feeling as it is. My dear little pain, I'm here for you. I'm sorry I've left you alone. I know you need my care. And allowing the warmth of our love to soothe, to soak in to the tender parts in us. To the fearful parts. And if we'd like to ask for support, we can invite the love of the Sangha, if that works for us. Feel the support of the Sangha to hold our difficulty, or the love and the clarity of the Buddha, or of our Mother Earth. And slowly inviting our pain to rest again. We'll come back and hold you again another time. We love you so much. Inviting it to become quiet and to rest for now. And becoming aware of our whole body. Our wonderful body that is our home. Dear body, I want to take good care of you. Right now, I'm going to invite you to release any tension you're holding. To let go. To relax and be at ease. Allowing my face and my head to relax and be at ease. Allowing the core of my body to let go of any holding and tension. To be at ease. My arms, feeling my arms and my hands. I'm sending my loving kindness to my face and my head, down my neck, through the core of my body, my arms. I'm sending my loving kindness down into my hips, my pelvic area, my legs, and down into my feet. Aware of my body, allowing my body to relax and be at ease. And slowly bringing our awareness out of our meditation, saying thank you to ourselves for taking this time to practice. In Buddhism, we learn that our real freedom is the base of our happiness. Our source of energy and source of our love comes from freedom inside. The nature of the mind to be busy and to constantly grasp onto things takes away our freedom and our clarity. Takes away the source of our being able to be really present with ourselves and to truly see the world around us, to know the world around us and to love the world around us. Our mind tends to be really stuck on this idea that we're separate self, and has a lot of grasping around that idea of ourself, protecting it, building it up. But when we're grasping onto all these little ideas of who we are, we don't have that freedom, we don't have that clarity, and we don't have the real happiness that's available to us. The happiness that our practice and the Buddha are inviting us to have. So I'd like to do another practice. This practice is on letting go, of this grasping. And it takes a lot of practice. It's very fun the more you do it, because you don't realize that you're suffering so much, worrying so much about yourself. You don't realize that that's the main source of your suffering. It's not that your hair's not perfect, it's that you're stuck on the idea about what your hair is supposed to look like, or whatever. That's a very little example. There are very big examples. The more you practice becoming aware of how we're grasping onto ideas and this experience of being separate, and you start to let that go and realize you don't need to grasp onto those things to be happy, the more you get this real taste for what real happiness and freedom is, what the path can really offer. And it's so wonderful. And for myself, having touched it enough, I can pull it in at any moment. I can feel like, and then I'm like, oh wait, no. There's so much space. There's so much there. I don't have to be caught and trapped in a little way or a big way about myself, because I'm not a separate self. I'm part of this big body. And so is everybody else. I also don't have to grasp onto other people, which is nice. So this practice I learned mostly through Thai and practices in the blooming of a lotus, the experiencing the joy of letting go, the basis of it. So we're gonna like pull up things that maybe we usually identify that build up this feeling of a separate self as ourself, and we're gonna experience the joy of letting go. Because it's very subtle. We don't so much of what we experience we don't choose. It's just how we've learned to be together. So when we bring it up, we get to recognize, oh, I'm really stuck on this part of who I think I am, or what I think I need to be happy. And you can feel that. For me, I can feel it in my body when I pull it up. Aware, of something I'm identify with or I'm attached to. I can feel the holding, and then this joy of letting that go. Are we ready to go back into a meditation? Yeah, okay. So coming back to our bodies. Actually, if you want to take a quick second, since we were just like stretch a little, refresh your physical energy. Okay, and coming back into our bodies with our awareness, bringing our awareness inside. Allowing the thoughts and feelings to settle again, so there's space. quiet inside. And breathing in, I see that I am not limited to, I am not defined by my name and my age. And breathing out, I experience the joy of letting go to my idea that I am defined by and limited by my name and my age. I experience the joy of letting go. Breathing in, I see that I am not limited by, I am not defined by having lots of money and fancy material possessions. And breathing out, I experience the joy of letting go. Breathing in, I see that I am not limited. I am not defined by my political views. And breathing out, I experience the joy of letting go. And breathing in, I see that I am not limited to, I am not defined by my challenging relationships. Breathing out, I experience the joy of letting go. Breathing in, I see that I am not limited to, I am not defined by my education and my career, the titles, the success or the failures in my work life. And breathing out, I experience the joy of letting go. And breathing in, I see that I am not limited to, I am not defined by my success, my likes on social media, Breathing out, I experience the joy of letting go. I let go of the idea that I am a separate small self. I take refuge in awareness itself, not limited by time and space. Awareness that is part of all life, connected and grounded in all life. Thank you for practicing together. Michael's going to share now for the second part of the Dharma Talk. As he gets ready, you may want to stretch a little bit again.
Hello, everyone. I'm flipping through the screens to check out all the images there. So many different people, each of us sitting in our own spot on our beautiful planet, looking at a screen and thinking we're looking at each other. Sometimes I need to remember that while I'm sitting here on a call, a Zoom call, especially with lots of people, that actually I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at a screen with lots of colored pixels on it, and you are seated beautifully somewhere else on our Mother Earth. And then I'm not so focused in through this screen to try to connect or to feel the connection with you, but instead I'm drawn back, as Fern just guided us so wonderfully. Thank you, Fern. Into that, the quieting of body and mind, to find that spaciousness inside and through my heart, opening in awareness. Now I feel you there. I don't just see a representation of you on the screen. And that feels lovely to me. Yeah. That meditation which Fern just offered, I do that meditation a lot, actually. I go through lots of different sets of ideas that I have about myself, or I just think about people that I know and love and think about the ideas that they have of themselves. And I ask that question inwardly. Can I can I acknowledge and see that I have some grasping onto this idea, this identity of who I am? And can I, if there is an attachment there, can I let it go? And there are a couple of times where I've made very comprehensive lists of ideas and attachments, very long lists. All these different ways of seeing myself, my identity, who and what I am. And I've gone through all these different elements, and in each one ask that question, can I let that go? Can I let that go? And sometimes I find there's a resistance in me. There's a part of me which wants to say, no, this is really important. This thing's important. This is important. It's important. Why? I mean, there could be all kinds of reasons. It's important that I hold on to this because, it gives me some sense of value or worth or meaning, or it's important because other people really need to understand this, and therefore I have to cling to it. It's important because there's great suffering, and work should be done to alleviate suffering. Right. Like a political cause or an environmental or social justice cause that we are passionate about and we cling to, we grasp tightly to it, and we may even define ourselves with that, right? It might be in our bio. I'm this kind of an activist. I'm this kind of a thing. And we have this tremendous grasping around that idea. But when we turn inside with the practice, there are no boundaries there that are acceptable to the heart. The only doorway to interbeing is our true presence and an open heart. It's the only door. And we are asked through a meditation like that to open and release and let go. It's really important to realize that when we let go of these things, even the beautiful things, even the things we're passionate about, even the things that have defined us for years or decades, or maybe our whole life, or maybe we believe that we have a lineage that we belong to, that we represent, that we extend into life from our ancestors, from our people, from our traditions, from our religions, right? And we grasp onto those things. It's so big and so important. When we practice to let go of these things, we're not actually letting go of the thing. We're letting go of our attachment to it. We're releasing our grip. It doesn't mean that the importance of the situation disappears. It means that we are now free to meet it from a new, fresh, beautiful, and sacred place inside. Instead of being driven by obligation, grasping, fear, anger, or even a passionate love, now we have spaciousness, an open heart, and a lot of freedom to bring into the world. So this is a practice of developing non-grasping, which is a practice of developing non-discrimination, which is a practice of opening our hearts to connect through true presence, to dissolve the difference between ourself and the other through awareness, to dissolve the distinction between subject and object, and to become one with our object of our meditation. When I practice to come home to myself, I calm my body. I hold, accept, embrace, and calm my feelings. Some of these feelings are in my body, in the cells of my body. Some of them are being produced by the stories in my mind. Whether they come from the body or the mind, I try to bring awareness and invite them into spaciousness and calm. When I do that with my stories, with my thoughts, my concepts as well, I create that spaciousness, that openness. And as I drop through the layers, body, feelings, and mind, turning inward, 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 I come home to myself. There is no one else who can do this for me. There is no one else who can take you on that journey into yourself. We each have to do it ourselves, to walk those steps inward through open, calm breathing and presence. And when we get right into the very heart of ourselves, it's like the most sacred sort of inner journey for ourselves. We meet ourselves there. It's the most me that I can be. It's actually there. Ironically, paradoxically, that I can begin to connect with you. That I begin to meet you, the other, the world around me. It's only when there is that calm and clarity in my body and my mind, when I'm fully collected and really truly present, that the veils between me and what is around me are softened, and the connection, heart connection, my interbeing nature, with you, with the world, is experienced. That's the doorway. This is not a conceptual, intellectual process. We can conceptualize and be very intellectual about all these theories, these high theories of interdependent co-origination and such. But in all of them, as long as they're ideas in our mind, they're unrealized. They're just concepts, they're just ideas. The only doorway into interbeing is through presence and our heart. Being beautifully together with all of our suffering, with all of our joy. So I would like to think about the different layers of our being, of our kind of bodies. Right? We have a body of our physical body, we have a body of feeling life, we have a body of our mind, but we also have a body of awareness. But the interesting thing about the body of awareness is this kind of awareness lives only in the present moment. Right? It's right here, right now. It's something we have to enter into as an experience. It's being present with our heart open. We experience life deeply, life unfolding. And there can't be a grasping there. It's quite the opposite of grasping. It's instead embracing and inclusive. It's quite wonderful. This awareness is alive in the present moment. And that is our doorway into life. And when I'm there, most me, most myself, I'm also most able to connect with you, to be present, to feel our interbeing nature. The threshold of non-separation, the threshold of non-discrimination. That's the threshold we cross through the practice of truly coming home to ourselves. When I really come home to myself, with the boundaries softening, between myself and the other, between myself and the world, the experience of happiness being a collective experience is very real. The experience of suffering being a shared experience is also very real. In other words, my happiness is your happiness is mine. My suffering is your suffering is mine. And we all know these things intellectually, but when we come into our full presence, we really feel and experience them. And this is an awareness which, for me, only gives me one choice. And I have fought against this choice, to be honest with you. I tried really hard at various moments in my life to cling to things for myself and to do something that would benefit me, or what belonged to me, or what was important to me, even though the world was asking me to open my heart to a new level of interbeing, of connection, of service. But the only pathway for me through the practice of mindfulness is a path of love. It's the only way it goes, is to continue opening, to continue growing. And like the child in Thay's poem that Fern read, to continue walking down that path. If we hold on to anything for ourselves, we will risk obstructing that path, the path of true love. But again, remember, when we practice letting go here, this is not like some foolish surrender to allow whatever is around us just to smush us into whatever it wants to smush us into. This is a letting go of our grasping and attachments. It's a letting go of our fear and anxiety. It's an opening up into liberated concentration, to insight, which helps us move through suffering. We can't let go into nothing. We let go into freshness, into newness, into freedom, and sometimes great ease and peace with our letting go. When we practice to be present with our body, we can look at our body as an experience of like cells that have come together in this particular way. And as we go through the course of our life, there's various moments of illness and health and growing and aging and creaking and cracking and all sorts of things that might happen. It has begun for me a little bit. I can see it in that small way as like, this is my body and it's going through this process and that process. But I can also come home deeply to my body and with true presence experience the miracle of each moment, how I am taking in water and air and foods, minerals and fibers and proteins and all sorts of things are coming in from all these other living beings around me in the world and being assimilated into this body. And I can experience as I eat, digest, and I learn and grow in my body that I am actually not separate from the rest of the world in my body. And even though there might be illness and discomfort and pain at one moment, or health and vitality in another, through either of those experiences, the deep presence and open heart of interbeing allows me great spaciousness and ease. And that's a practice to do, right? And the same with the emotional life. All these things that I know, all these things that I feel, all these stories that have constructed who I am are a continuation of my society, my education, my ancestors. So as I let go of my grasping and attachment to identity, the richness and diversity of who and all that I truly am comes to life. As I release my clinging, I open to the new solidity that I have of realizing my ancestors are living through me and on into the future. And I carry with me the mark of all their suffering, but also of all their joy and all they have learned and grown. It's quite wonderful. And that spaciousness, that solidity, is the fruit of true presence, the open heart and interbeing, the high understanding. This is called, this particular one is really beautiful. When we learn to see our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors in us and through us into the continuation into our descendants and all. This is actually has a name. It's called the emptiness of transmission. The emptiness of transmission. And what it refers to is the transmission of life from one generation to another is empty of separation. There is no separation there. It's empty of, can be empty, can be free from a lot of experiences of suffering, like loneliness and anxiety. All those things are the cause of wrong ideas about who and what we are and where we come from. But when we go deeply through the door of the emptiness of transmission, and we become one with our ancestors and our descendants, all those little fears and anxieties have no ground anymore. So the emptiness of transmission is like this. There's our parents, they're here, and there's the children there. And there's a transmission of life. Right? So the parent and the child and the transmission of life, they seem to be three things. But when you look deeply into the parent, you see the child and the transmission. When you look deeply into the child, you see the parent and the transmission. When you look into the transmission, there's no transmission without a parent and a child. Right? So they are each other. They are all there all the time. So this, from the perspective of our daily life, we're often thinking, this is me and that's you, right? This is me and that's society. I'm here and you're there. My parents came before me and they're dead and gone now, right? Or however we want to see that distinction. But the reality is, when we look deeply, that they are still alive in us, continuing and transforming through us. There's never been a separation, never a moment of separation. The emptiness of transmission is happening not just with parents to children, but between us and society. It's happening everywhere, all the time. It's wonderful to go through that door with an open heart and not just use your intellect, really sit and breathe and feel and open your heart to what that means and let the transformation take place. Let the liberation take place. That we don't carry these burdens alone. It is the story of humanity, and each of us has a thread in this tapestry to weave. Right? We carry it for a time and we weave it as beautifully as we can. So beautiful. It's wonderful. This path of mindfulness, this path of love for me, it has many, many forms. When I say love, I don't just mean like, oh, let's cuddle up and be all cozy and sweet and lovey-dovey, right? The path of mindfulness in terms of being a path of love can be very strong and powerful too. In fact, I was thinking about it in terms of protest. Right? And love here could be protest. Protest isn't always love. But love can be protest. Sometimes our protest is filled with fear and anger and hatred. But protest can come from love. A deep love of knowing right, knowing uprightness, knowing goodness and virtue, and going beyond what it means for me or my kind and people, going to the deep source of our true home where we all are in this together. Love could also be deep listening. To be able to stop and make space in my body and mind and open my heart to listen deeply to the experience that another person is having, to offer them that space, to offer them that recognition, to reflect back to them what I see or share with them what I don't understand, but to listen in such a way that there's learning and growing happening. Love can be not taking sides. This is very important for us actually right now. Non-discriminative wisdom in action, right? We take interbeing, and it's this experience of interbeing and what it means in terms of non-discrimination, and put it into action. And to do that, we cannot take sides. We can represent a living experience of compassion, of respect, of decency, but we can't take sides, one thing against another, if we're going to come from a place of non-discriminative wisdom. An example of this that comes to me from, like, say, two of my children are in the room playing, and then one does something that the other does not like, and then they start to bicker and to fight. And there I am, looking at these two beings, both of whom I love beyond description, hurting each other. How can I hold that, right? How can I hold one and the other? Maybe one is really hurting the other, and I'm like, I need to stop that injustice, right? How can I hold them both? How can I express to them both my care and my love for both of them, and yet also protest the fact of the fighting, right? That is the practice, putting our non-discriminative love into action. And there's all sorts of practices that I need to do, like listening, like breathing, like calming, in order to maintain the capacity to love them both while I intervene and help hold and make a space in which they cannot hurt each other. There's this little song we have, The Gift of a Quiet Mind. The gift of a quiet mind brings us peace and healing. The gift of a quiet heart makes love sweet. Winning or losing, quietly breathing, watching the snow fall on cat's feet. This is a very interesting image for the winter and for Zen on the last line. But what stands out to me in that song here is the line, winning or losing, quietly breathing, right? Like whether I'm winning, whether I'm losing, right? What does that mean, right? Let that reflect on all the things you believe in, all the things you're trying to do and accomplish with projects, with work, with movements, with whatever you're doing. Let that reflect from a deep place in your heart. On the one hand, we might be drawn to believe something should be like this. And on the other hand, we might be drawn to believe it should be like that. And maybe I believe it should be like that, and you believe it should be like this. And now we appear to be on different sides. And as we tussle, one of us is going to win or lose. Right? There's like, whoa, that pull to extremes. Our practice asks us to do something different, which is not to come to the center in the sense of political center. Be really clear about that. That's not what I'm talking about. But to move towards the center in terms of the lemniscate. You know what a lemniscate is? A lemniscate is a figure 8, the figure 8 image. And the figure 8 image has no end, right? And as you're drawn out to one extreme, it must be like this. Use the practice to turn yourself back towards the center and dance on that arc back to the middle way. Oh, and then you might get there, but you might go too far and start going the other way. And oh, now you're going off to another extreme, and use the practice to dance back towards the middle, right? And it's a constant dance and a movement that we are living with each other as we practice to open our hearts and interbeing. In one moment, I feel that this is my body. And then I find myself attached to the disease or the health of my body. And so I arc back towards the middle by using the teachings of deep looking, and I see my body is not me. My body is the continuation of all the elements in the earth. So now it's not my body, now it's the earth's body. And I go back through the middle, and then I go, yes, I am the whole cosmos. And now I've gone into another direction of extreme, and I now see myself as the whole world. And now I'm caught over there on the other side. And I need to practice a little bit to come home to the experience of just my body in the present moment. And now my body is me again. And that's a dance we need to do all the time. The heart can live there in the middle. Our mind can only go from one side to the other side. Right? And so that's my whole talk is right there today. It's just to encourage us. Stay there. Stay there with the heart open. And use the best that we can of our thinking and our feeling and our actions to keep dancing back into that space of an open heart that knows interbeing through and through. And it becomes a path of love, always a path of love, never one of grasping, tension, fear, anger, vengeance, jealousy, a path of love. Breathing in and breathing out. I am aware of my in-breath and my out-breath. Breathing in and breathing out. I also know that my mother, my father, and all my ancestors breathe with me. Breathing in and breathing out. I feel the cells of my body nourished by the molecules of oxygen, the out-breath of forests, and my blood and the forest breathing become one. My ancestors breathing with me, my descendants inheriting this moment. Thank you, dear friends, for carrying the practice into your lives and into the world. We are a sangha, a community of practice, which in and of itself expresses the highest understanding that we are not separate entities and that all of our stories are shared. And we have a beautiful path of healing and transformation and joy and celebration to walk together. Thanks. I'll invite the bell to close.